Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to explore something that I think we all struggle with from time to time,
Mm-hmm.
and that is mental resets.
Mental resets.
So how to bounce back from setbacks, how to kind of hit the refresh button, and how to adopt the habits of those people who just seem to thrive no matter what.
They just roll with the punches.
Yeah,
They always seem to land on their feet.
exactly. And to guide us on this exploration,
Yes.
we're going to be diving into the work of Akira Nakajima,
Akira Nakajima.
who is a self-esteem expert.
Yes,
And he shares some really powerful insights through his YouTube videos.
he does.
And we're going to be breaking down his concepts on emotional rhythms, which I find fascinating.
Yes.
The link between anxiety and self-esteem
Mm-hmm.
and the habits that set successful people apart.
Right.
So first, let's think about those times when we experience a major loss or a setback,
Uh-huh.
something that really throws us off balance.
Yeah.
Nakajima introduces this idea of emotional rhythms. And I find this so fascinating because it's not just about, feeling sad.
Right,
It's
yeah.
about recognizing that there are distinct phases we go through.
Phases.
Yes.
And what's so interesting about what he says is that you don't always experience those phases linearly.
Oh, interesting.
You might bounce back
Yeah.
and forth between them. You might
no.
skip a phase. You might go back to a phase.
Okay.
But the power isn't just recognizing that those rhythms exist.
Right.
It's like having a map to your own emotional landscape.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so he outlines 5 distinct phases.
Whoa, okay.
And they are shock,
Shock,
recognition of grief,
recognition of
withdrawal, preparation for recovery,
preparation for recovery.
and finally recovery
Yes.
itself.
Makes sense.
Have you ever noticed yourself going through these phases after a difficult experience?
Absolutely. And I think if we asked our listeners, they would say the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, think back to a time when you faced a significant setback. Maybe it was the loss of a job. Maybe it was the end of a relationship.
Right.
Or maybe it was even a personal failure.
Sure.
Think about that time.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself initially numb or in disbelief?
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually you sort of acknowledged the pain and the sadness of the situation.
Yeah.
And then maybe you withdrew from others or blamed yourself or sought escape.
It's interesting how we often isolate ourselves
Yeah,
when we're hurting.
I do.
Almost like an instinct to protect ourselves.
It's like a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
And that's where Nakajima says that if we have low self-esteem, this withdrawal phase can actually be prolonged.
Interesting.
Because if you already have a negative self-image,
Mm-hmm.
a major setback can feel like confirmation of your worst fears.
Right. Right. It just proves all the negative thoughts you have about yourself.
Exactly. And so it can trap you in this cycle of self-blame
Oh, wow.
and make it even harder to move towards recovery.
So it's like that setback actually amplifies those insecurities
Exactly.
and makes it harder to see the path forward.
It's like you're wearing these dark glasses
Right.
and it's harder to see the light.
I like that. Okay, so what about when we start to shift gears? When we start preparing for recovery?
That's where things start to get a little brighter.
Yeah.
And that's when we might start seeking out positive experiences,
Yes.
even if they're small at first.
Sure.
So maybe it's reconnecting with a friend or engaging in a hobby that we love,
Mm-hmm.
or even just finding small moments of joy in our day.
Yeah.
Those little things can actually start to shift our mood
Yeah.
and give us a little bit of momentum towards healing.
So it's about actively seeking those glimmers of hope
Yes.
and allowing ourselves to experience those moments of joy even when it feels difficult.
Exactly. And eventually, as we continue on that path, we reach the final stage, which is recovery.
Recovery.
And this doesn't mean that we forget the pain or the loss,
Right.
but it does signify that we are back in a state of emotional well-being.
Yep.
We can function effectively,
Yeah.
and we can embrace life again.
That's a good reminder that healing is possible.
Yes.
Even after the most challenging experiences.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, though, about this link between low self-esteem and getting stuck in those negative phases. Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Yeah, so Nakajima suggests that low self-esteem can actually make us more vulnerable to anxiety,
Okay.
and that anxiety can then fuel those negative emotional responses.
I see.
So when we don't believe in ourselves or our abilities, we're more likely to doubt ourselves, catastrophize situations,
Right.
and fear the worst.
Okay, so it's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Low self-esteem breeds anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
which then intensifies those difficult emotional phases,
Yes.
making it even harder to break free.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this leads us perfectly into the next part of our deep dive,
Okay.
where we'll actually explore this connection between anxiety and self-esteem a little bit deeper. We'll talk about how Nakajima sees anxiety as a symptom of low self-worth,
Okay.
and then we'll explore some strategies for addressing that root cause.
That sounds really insightful. I think understanding this connection could be key
Yeah,
to unlocking a greater sense of resilience and emotional well-being.
absolutely. Because it's not just about the stressors we encounter.
Right.
It's about how we interpret and respond to them based on how we see ourselves.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about how low self-esteem can make us more susceptible to anxiety,
Right.
but how does that actually play out in our lives?
Well, you can think of self-esteem as like the foundation of our emotional house.
Okay,
So when that foundation is shaky, everything just feels less stable.
I saw.
Challenges seem bigger.
Right.
Uncertainties feel scarier.
Yeah.
And we're just more likely to react with fear and anxiety.
So it's like we're constantly on edge, bracing ourselves for that next bad thing to happen.
Exactly. We're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And Nakajima argues that this anxiety stems from a lack of inner security.
Okay.
When we don't believe in ourselves, we just don't have the confidence to navigate those ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
We doubt our abilities.
Right.
We question our worthiness. And
Right.
we just feel kind of helpless when we face challenges.
It's interesting because we often think of anxiety as being triggered by external factors,
Mm-hmm.
but it sounds like Nakajima is saying it's more about our internal state,
Mhm.
our self-perception.
It's not just about what's happening to us.
Right.
Like, it's about how we see it.
I
It's
see.
how we interpret it.
So two people could be facing the same challenge, but react completely differently
Absolutely.
based on their self-worth.
Someone with high self-esteem might see a challenge as an opportunity to grow,
Mm-hmm.
whereas someone with low self-esteem might see that same challenge as like a threat,
Oh, why?
and that triggers their anxiety.
So it's not about avoiding challenges altogether.
No.
It's about building that inner resilience so we can face them head on with confidence and a sense of agency.
And that's where Nakajima's strategies for combating anxiety come in.
Okay.
He talks about 3 main actions.
Right.
Embracing vulnerability,
Okay.
giving ourselves permission, and expressing gratitude.
Okay. Those sound simple, but I bet they're not as easy as they sound.
They're simple, but they're powerful.
Okay. Let's break them down.
Sure.
So what does he mean by embracing vulnerability?
It's about letting go of that need to appear perfect
Right.
and allowing ourselves to be seen for who we are.
I think that's hard for a lot of people,
It is. It's very hard.
especially in today's world.
It's hard to let people see our flaws, our imperfections,
Yeah.
but it's also about being able to acknowledge our struggles,
Mm-hmm.
ask for help when we need it,
Yeah.
and recognizing that we don't have to have it all figured out.
So it's about being authentic
Yes,
and accepting that it's okay to not be okay.
exactly. And this ties into the second action,
Okay.
which is giving ourselves permission. Permission to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Permission to feel uncertain.
Right.
Permission to just be human.
I think we're so hard on ourselves.
We are.
We're always striving for perfection.
We set these really high standards for ourselves.
Yeah. And we forget to give ourselves grace.
Exactly. And we forget that it's okay to mess up.
Right.
It's okay to not know everything.
Yeah. And I think especially with social media,
Oh, yeah.
it's like everyone's presenting this perfect image.
Everyone's highlight reel.
Right.
And we're comparing ourselves to that.
Exactly. And feeling inadequate.
So it's about letting go of those unrealistic expectations
Mm-hmm.
and embracing our own journey.
I love that. Okay. And the third action,
Yes.
expressing gratitude.
This one might seem a little unrelated to anxiety at first,
Yeah.
but it's actually incredibly powerful.
Okay.
When we focus on what we're grateful for,
Mm-hmm.
we're shifting our attention away from fear and worry.
Right.
And we're creating a more positive emotional state.
So it's like intentionally cultivating a mindset of appreciation,
Exactly.
even amidst those challenges.
Even when things are tough,
Yeah.
you can still find things to be grateful for.
And that can be really difficult
It can be.
when you're in those negative thought patterns.
But it's about training our brains to focus on the positive.
Right.
And that can really help to reduce those feelings of anxiety and overwhelm.
Okay, so Nakajima argues that these 3 actions of embracing vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
giving ourselves permission,
Yes,
and expressing gratitude all work together to boost self-esteem,
they do.
which ultimately addresses the root cause of the anxiety.
That's the key.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, embracing vulnerability builds self-acceptance and it
Mhm.
allows us to connect with others more authentically.
So it strengthens our relationships.
It does.
Okay.
And giving ourselves permission fosters self-compassion.
Mm.
And it quiets that inner critic that's always fueling our anxiety.
Yeah, that inner voice that's always putting us down. And then expressing gratitude.
Gratitude shifts our perspective.
Right.
It allows us to see the good even when things are tough.
Yeah.
And that fosters a sense of hope and resilience.
So it sounds like these actions are all interconnected, and they create this positive upward spiral
Exactly.
that leads to greater self-worth and emotional well-being.
That's the goal.
I love that. Okay, so how do these insights connect to the habits of successful people?
Oh, that's a great question.
Is there a link between these actions
There is.
and the traits that drive success?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Nakajima actually dives into this in his videos.
Oh, cool.
He looks at what sets successful people apart, and what he finds is that a lot of their habits are rooted in these same principles
Interesting.
of self-esteem,
Okay.
self-compassion, and a positive mindset.
So it's not just about external achievements or strategies.
No.
It's about cultivating those internal qualities
Yeah.
that really empower us to thrive.
That's about who we are.
Right.
Not just what we do.
I like that a lot. Okay, so Nakajima has identified 5 key habits
Yes.
that he believes are fundamental to success.
Yeah, these are the habits of highly successful people.
Okay, and they provide a roadmap
They do.
for cultivating that strong sense of self and navigating those challenges with grace and resilience.
Exactly.
I'm intrigued. Let's dive into these 5 habits and see how they can help us unlock our own potential
Let's do it.
and live more fulfilling lives.
Sounds good. Okay, so the first habit is what Nakajima calls the I love me mentality.
The I love me mentality.
Yeah, it might sound a little radical at first.
It does.
Especially in a world that tells us to be humble and, not to brag.
Right.
But think about it this way.
Good.
When you genuinely love and accept yourself, you're not coming from a place of ego or arrogance.
Right.
You're simply recognizing your inherent worthiness
Okay.
and appreciating your unique qualities.
So it's about having a healthy sense of self-respect
Exactly.
and recognizing that you deserve happiness and fulfillment.
You are worthy of love and happiness.
Right. And it's not selfish
It's not selfish at all.
to think that way.
In fact, it's actually the opposite.
Okay. How so?
Because when you love yourself, you're better equipped to love and appreciate others.
Oh, that makes sense.
You're not coming from a place of neediness.
Right.
You're coming from a place of wholeness.
I like that a lot. It's like filling your own cup first
Yeah.
so you can then pour into others without depleting yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the first habit, the I love me mentality.
Mm-hmm.
What's the second one?
The second habit is all about expressing gratitude.
Gratitude.
Nakajima really emphasizes the power of arigato,
Okay.
which signifies appreciation and kindness.
I've definitely noticed that people who seem genuinely happy
Yeah.
often have this deep sense of gratitude.
They do.
Like they appreciate the little things and they don't take anything for granted.
Exactly. And Nakajima contrasts this with the habit of excessive apologizing. Oh, interesting.
While apologies are important when they're genuine, he suggests that over-apologizing can actually diminish self-worth.
So it's like constantly putting ourselves down.
Yeah, and it can create this negative spiral.
So it's about finding that balance between taking responsibility when needed.
But not constantly devaluing ourselves.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, and this actually ties into the third habit,
Okay, what's that?
which is taking action.
Taking action.
Successful people don't just sit around waiting for things to happen.
Right.
They make things happen.
They're proactive.
They are.
They go after what they want.
Exactly. They embrace opportunities, even if those opportunities come with risks.
Okay, because they might fail.
They know they might fail, but they're not afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
They understand that failure is part of the process.
Right.
And they learn from their mistakes.
So it's about cultivating that can-do attitude
Yes.
and not letting fear hold us back.
I like it. Okay, so we've got I love me, we've got gratitude, we've got taking action. What's the fourth habit?
The fourth habit is seeking ease.
Seeking ease. That sounds a little counterintuitive.
It does, right?
Like, aren't successful people supposed to work hard and hustle?
Yes, but it's not about being lazy or avoiding challenges.
Okay, so it's not about taking the easy way out,
No,
but about finding ways to make things flow more smoothly.
exactly. It's about optimizing for well-being and creating systems that support efficiency and reduce stress.
So it's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
And streamlining our lives so we have more space for joy.
Yes.
Okay. And the fifth habit.
The fifth and final habit is valuing loved ones.
Valuing loved ones.
Successful people understand the importance of connection.
Mm-hmm.
They prioritize their relationships,
That
and
part.
they make time for the people who matter most.
So it's not all about work and achievement.
No, it's about recognizing that relationships are a source of strength and happiness.
Right, and it's about nurturing those bonds that
Yes,
bring us joy and support.
exactly.
Okay, so those are the 5 habits,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm curious how they all tie back to our conversation about self-esteem and anxiety.
Well, when you cultivate these habits,
Mm-hmm.
you're essentially strengthening your sense of self-worth.
Okay.
You're building that inner foundation
Right.
that allows you to navigate challenges with
Mhm.
confidence and resilience.
So it's like a positive feedback loop.
Exactly.
These habits foster self-esteem,
Mm-hmm.
which then reduces anxiety
Yes.
and allows us to thrive.
It's all interconnected.
That's so cool.
Mm.
And what's so great about Nakajima's insights
Yeah,
is that they offer actionable steps we can all take
they do.
to cultivate these habits.
Mhm.
It's not about some magical transformation.
No.
It's about making those conscious choices each day
Yes.
that align with these principles.
It's about those small, consistent actions
Right.
that shape our self-perception and our
I
experiences.
love that. But before we wrap up,
Yeah.
there's one question I keep coming back to.
Okay.
Nakajima talks about this I love me mentality,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't really say how to get there.
That's a good point.
For someone who's really struggling with self-criticism,
Right.
embracing self-love might feel impossible.
It can feel really daunting.
So how do we bridge that gap?
That's a great question, and it's something I really want our listeners to think about.
Yeah.
How do we shift from self-criticism to self-love?
Right.
Maybe it starts with noticing those negative thought patterns
Mm-hmm.
and gently challenging them.
Maybe it's about focusing on our strengths
Yes,
and celebrating our accomplishments,
even the small ones.
even the small ones.
Exactly.
It's about recognizing that we're all works in progress
Mhm.
and choosing to focus on the positive.
So it's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly.
And it's a journey worth taking.
Absolutely, because when we learn to love and accept ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
we unlock this incredible potential for peace,
Mm-hmm.
joy, and fulfillment.
And that impacts every area of our lives.
It does.
Wow, this has been an incredible deep dive.
Yes.
We've explored so much.
Yeah.
The power of mental resets,
Mm-hmm.
the link between self-esteem and anxiety,
Yes.
and the habits that set those successful people apart.
And I hope our listeners feel inspired to apply these insights to their own lives,
Me too.
whether it's understanding their emotional rhythms
Mm-hmm.
or taming their anxiety through self-esteem
Right?
or adopting these 5 incredible habits.
There's so much potential for positive change
There is.
within each and every one of us.
So keep exploring,
Yeah.
keep growing,
Keep believing in yourself.
and most importantly, keep diving deep.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep those minds open.